Okay, we're live.
Oh, we are live. All right. I'll tell you what. Welcome back, members of council. Welcome back, members of our staff, and those that are in the audience. It's a little after 5:30. We are continuing our meeting of Monday, December the 12th, 2022. Council met in camera at 4 o'clock and went a little longer than normal. And I also had to leave the meeting and go and attend a 100th birthday party in our beautiful community. So I'm quite grateful that we're able to get the meeting underway and still within a timely manner. So welcome to Clearview Township's council meeting. Council has, as I said, had already begun the agenda. So I'm going to move to the first thing I'd like to say is the land acknowledgement. And this will be the first and last time we've done it for December. So I will read it. I would like to begin our meeting by recognizing the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples of Canada as traditional stewards and caretakers of the land. We acknowledge that Clearview Township is located within the boundaries of Treaty 18, the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Tiatatari, and the Wendat, and it is the home of many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples as part of an intricate nationhood that reaches across Turtle Island. At this time of truth and reconciliation, we welcome the opportunity to work together towards new understandings and new relationships, and we ask for guidance in all that we do. Again, it's my pleasure to voluntarily say this land acknowledgement, and I'm very pleased to be able to do that as the mayor of the Township of Clearview. Council, I'm going to move us right over to item number 2 on our agenda, which is the approval of the agenda. Recommendation, be it resolved that the agenda dated December 12, 2022, be approved as presented. I'll look for a mover and seconder. Councillor Deneen, Councillor Beelan, thank you very much. Any questions on the agenda? Seeing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? That motion carries unanimous. Thank you. At this time, is there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof for the content of this meeting? Yes, Mr. Broderick. Councillor Broderick.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will not be voting on the committee appointments as one of my daughters has volunteered for one of those.
Oh, I see. Okay. Thank you very much for that, sir. That's great. Mr. Deputy Mayor. Yes, sir.
Previously declared a conflict in the as well, so I will not be voting on the appointments for committees.
All right. Thank you very much. Is there anything else? If any other member has anything come up, please bring it forward and we'll deal with it at that time. Okay, council, we do have a public participation session. This is the first one of our first business meeting. I do have a written submission and then I'll go to the floor if there's any from the council chamber. First of all, be advised that comments and views expressed under public participation period are not the views of Clearview Township Council or the administration. Public participation is limited to 15 minutes. Each person is limited to 5 minutes. Questions and comments are to be directed to the mayor, and questions shall not refer to personnel matters, litigation or potential litigation or planning matters that have already had a public meeting or any item considered confidential. And as always, please remember to share the time with your fellow citizens. So we did have a written submission sent in from Teresa Jolliffe. I think I've done a good job on that name. Teresa. It's in regards to school buses in the New Lowell area. The school bus consortium are not cooperating with her, I presume, in regards to a pickup spot for one of her children. She's requesting assistance from council. And I, just to inform everyone on council, I have reached out to the new school board trustee, Brandy Rafiq. Brandy and I have had a conversation about this very point. And she is committed to come and meet with me and or the resident to try to sort this out. So unfortunately, this is not something that Clearview Council can do anything for. It's outside of our regulations and responsibilities, but it is something that we can work with our partners in the school board and the school bus consortium. So I just want to acknowledge that we received that. Thank you. And at this time, is there any member from the public who has any questions that they'd like to pose to public participation period? The microphone is open. Yes, sir. Would you like to come forward? Hello, Jamie. Come right over here to the microphone so that you and I can hear each other. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
First of all, just state your names and so we know who you are.
James Marzano.
Okay. Hi. What's on your mind?
So yeah, I'm here today Compass Energy has been working with Clearview staff on the request for sign off on municipal council support resolution in support for our proposed energy storage project within Stainer.
Yes.
And we understand that this recommendation report has been will be submitted this evening. So we're adopting a motion to support this proposed project that's being bid in February 2023 in response to the ISO long-term expedited long-term RFP for new energy storage energy capacity within the province.
Okay. I believe it is on our agenda, and I've been consulting with the clerk. I appreciate that you have presented a motion, and so we'll consider that if council wants to hear the motion, and then we'll see if I can get a mover and seconder on it. Does that sound fair? In the meantime, we will have a presentation by our staff in regards to that issue. They'll just brief comments, and then we'll proceed at council's wish. Is that okay with you?
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Were you on the meeting? Were you on the public meeting that we, or the presentation meeting? We had a Zoom meeting. Were you?
Yes.
So it's nice to meet you in person then.
Likewise.
There you go. Okay. All right. Anything further? Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. You can have a seat again. Is there anybody else from the members of the public who wish to come forward with a question? Public participation period? No, I see Sarah's moving the mic. Okay. Going once, going twice. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for those that participated in public participation here at the Township of Clearview. All right, members of council, we're going to move on to deputations and presentations. We do have Herb Shields here with us. Hello, Herb. You want to grab that chair. And Herb would like to speak to us about TC Energy.
Test. How's the audio?
We can hear you, I think. Council? Yep.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sarah, could you just adjust that again? Herb, give us a test one more time, please. Sarah's right out there.
Test. How's my audio right now? Is it okay? Feedback?
That's much better. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing TC Energy to do a brief delegation to Council this evening regarding the proposed Ontario pump storage project located in Meaford with transmission lines going through Clearview Township. I have a presentation on the screens. It is available to staff and for reference after this presentation. Just a point of order, just to clarify, do I have 5 minutes or 10 minutes for a presentation?
You have about 10
minutes. Excellent. Thank you very much.
If I can just interrupt you though, Ted, we've already had our public participation period and we're moving on in our agenda. So unfortunately you didn't make it, but it was good to talk to you this afternoon in the office.
Oh,
well, no, I'm just letting you know because I know that you were intent on being here and we held off till 1:45 and started the meeting. So, okay.
no, I didn't hear how we start.
We are already moved on in our agenda to deputations, and Mr. Shields is about to give a deputation. We've completed the public participation period for today. That's correct. Yeah. So relax and enjoy yourself. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Herb. Thank you.
No, that's quite all right. So I'll be following along with this presentation on your screens, and by all means, I'll be taking questions if the council chooses after this presentation. So pump storage. This is a large grid scale battery that TC Energy wants proposed to be building on the Department of National Defence lands in Meaford. So this is an opportunity for Ontario to move away from fossil fuels in Ontario's electrical grid and go towards a zero carbon or net zero energy grid in the future. TC Energy believes that Ontario is going to require something like this, a large bulk scale energy battery, in order to stabilize the energy grid as more renewable power comes online over the coming decades, whether that's wind, solar, a variety of other storage facilities, nuclear. All that is going to require a stabilizer for like that energy grid, and that stabilizer is a large scale battery for those facilities. When I say large scale, it is fairly large. We are proposing 1,000 megawatt battery storage facility, and 1,000 megawatts, to put it into context, that will power about 1 million homes over an 8-hour period. And to provide some context, the Sir Adam Beck facility in Niagara Falls is just under maybe 2,000 megawatts. So this is about half the size of the large Sir Adam Beck facility in Niagara Falls. By providing zero carbon energy storage, comparing that to a removal of natural gas generation in Ontario, we estimate that this will save about 500,000 tons of carbon dioxide every year by removing that natural gas generated power. And of course, we are reducing and reusing the existing power that is being generated and ratepayers have already paid for in Ontario. This is what the facility is being proposed to look like, and this is what we are proposing now. People may have remembered several years ago when TC Energy proposed this facility, the design looked very different, and it has been redesigned from head to toe based on feedback that we received from like the public. So for example, everything right now is below ground. With the exception of a station yard at the Department of National Defense lands, everything will be below ground, including our pump station and powerhouse, tunneling systems that'll be underground, as well as then an underground intake outlet system that'll be in deep water in Georgian Bay with as you can see, like a light bulb or a circle design, which will be about 1.5 kilometers in diameter, with about 20 risers coming up from like the lake bed that will then diffuse that water as it exits the facility, and also that water being brought into like the facility. So the concept is, if we slow down the water, disperse the water, we can then mimic the existing currents that are in Georgian Bay, and we're expecting about 1 kilometer an hour currents that'll be both being brought into the facility and also being removed from the facility in about a 24-hour period or less. There's other slides in this presentation where I'll talk more about location and other safeguards that we've done when it comes to the environment, and also aesthetic safeguards as well. As I mentioned, like the location is on the Department of National Defense lands in Meaford. These are federal lands. We do have an agreement in principle with the Department of National Defense to do like this exploratory discussions, surveys, environmental data collection to determine that this is feasible for Department of National Defense to have this coexist on their lands. Department of National Defense still has to do their own assessment to determine if their mission can coexist with this facility. And we expect that report will be starting in 2023. People have asked why Meaford for such a large battery. And as you can see here in like the maps, there's several things that have to align for that to take place. One, access to water. Georgian Bay does provide that. Elevation difference. So with like the Niagara Escarpment, that large and significant elevation drop does provide that opportunity for gravity, and to access to lands. So reducing the amount of private property impacts and sensitive environmental impacts by taking that opportunity to reuse Department of National Defense lands provided that opportunity. And then lastly, access to markets. So as you can see, Barrie, Toronto, Mississauga is about 2 hours, 3 hours away, which then provides the most optimal opportunity to generate power and distribute that power to the most amount of people in Southern Ontario. And especially to Clearview Township, you'd be more interested in transmission. So again, one of the feedback components we received is we did initially propose an overland transmission route. So very a traditional kind of a large steel tower structures that would carry power from Meaford to Stayner. However, the feedback from residents was quite clear that they were not supportive of that. There was potential concerns about environmental impacts, agricultural impacts, visual impacts. So we have redesigned that transmission route to go as a lake bed buried cable line from Meaford across Nottawassaga Bay to Wasaga Beach. From Wasaga Beach, we would then land, and then from Wasaga Beach to Stainer, about 8 kilometers or so, we would have again a buried cable line that would then go to the Stainer Transformer Station. So people are familiar with that off Industrial Road or before Fairgrounds Road. Hydro One has an existing transformer station where we would build then a sister switch yard next to that for power to transfer. And then from Stainer, there's existing Hydro One transmission lines and corridors that would go to the ESSA transformer station. It's a very large transformer station outside Barrie. And from there, power can be redistributed across most of South Central Ontario. As I mentioned, this project has been redesigned based on public feedback, and that redesign has been significant. So we still have an artificial reservoir at the top of like the Niagara Escarpment on Department of National Defence lands. This will be about 375 acres of reservoir. So think of it as a very large pond or a small lake at the top of the Niagara Escarpment. You'll see here our powerhouse is buried into like the Niagara Escarpment, along with the 4 turbines required to generate that power. We have then about a 3-kilometer long tunnel, and there'll be pictures on in later presentation to describe those tunnels that will carry that water from that reservoir out to Georgian Bay. And then, as you can see, about 800 meters, almost a kilometer into deep water, the 20 or so risers that will be dispersing that water across about a kilometer and a half of size. This illustrates the size and scale of like those diffuse inlet outlet ports. People have been very concerned about fish and fish impacts, water impacts, as well as like turbidity, so kicking up of sediments and debris at the lake bed. So we've taken that to heart. So our risers, as you can see, are above the lake bed, so there is no impacts to like the lake bed itself. Our risers are capped at the top and bottom, so it forces the water to mimic the existing currents, which is going horizontally in and out of like the facility. Again, slowing down that water to 1 kilometer an hour, which is the existing currents within Georgian Bay, and again providing enough clearance, for example, pleasure boats or craft, which is not in the air. From like this presentation, but it's actually at the surface of the water. And as you can see, there's plenty of space and clearance for like those risers with existing boats. We expect Transport Canada will also add additional safety measures, such as buoys, to indicate where those risers are, again, to avoid any impacts with a pleasure craft or with fishing vessels. And I should also add, this is located in the Department of National Defence safety zone around the military base. So approximately 1 mile around the military base, pleasure craft vessels ought to get the permission of D&D before they traverse in that area. And it is frowned upon to linger in that area unless you're traversing through it. People have asked about construction techniques and what we're proposing to do. So this is essentially what our tunnels should be looking like, and our construction techniques should be looking like once we're into construction. These pictures come from the City of Toronto. Wastewater Department in Toronto is constructing a very similar process for wastewater to be brought back into Lake Ontario. So this is, like, as you can see, about a 12-meter in diameter tunnel. They use boring machines to develop these tunnels. And then, as you can see, there's piping systems throughout that tunnel to bring that water out into Lake Ontario. And then the construction can be maintained and operated in those tunneling systems. And we're proposing a very similar construction technique in Meaford. This is what also we're proposing to look like in the water. So as you can see, there's platforms that have been put into Lake Ontario to bring in risers, or those underground water intake outlet systems. And those risers will then have like a sleeve or a caisson where all the work will take place in that sleeve, where construction crews would drill into like the lake bed, insert the risers into like the tunneling systems, and then go from port to port And once those are complete, the risers would leave. The sleeves would leave, the platforms would leave, and so nothing would be seen from the water. And because everything is buried, nothing would be seen from Georgian Bay, with the exception of the reservoir embankment at the top of the escarpment. We are at the very beginning of the regulatory process. So in 2023, we expect to begin a federal impact assessment process, which would have multiple rounds of public consultation and engagement required. We're expecting that process to last 3 years. And then in coordination, then the province of Ontario will also be allowing us to undertake class environmental assessments for the transmission line component, which would then also require consultation processes in coordination then with the federal government. So we're expecting at least 3 years of regulatory submissions, including public consultation, and then construction would begin in 2025. We're expecting a 4-year construction cycle with then completion in 2030 and a completion date in late 2030. Many people have asked about the socioeconomic impacts as well as the environmental impacts, and TC Energy is committed to maximizing the local procurement and employment and training opportunities for this project. Ontario has a long and rich history of hydroelectric development, and there are existing firms throughout Ontario that will be investing in this area. And TC Energy is currently developing a program to maximize even those well-intentioned efforts of local suppliers across Ontario to maximize employment and procurement in Bruce, Grey, and Simcoe counties. The next few slides are just examples of like the current investments that TC Energy has already undertaken. So we have contracted with Makwa Cahill, a local fabrication shop in Owen Sound, to do some work on our risers that'll be in the water. We have retained Hatch, a well-respected engineering firm based out of Oakville, to conduct some reservoir safety and design work. And of course, we are developing a relationship with Georgian College for training and apprenticeship that we will also want to accelerate in 2023. In addition to those opportunities, we have been working with environmental groups, labor groups, as well as chambers of commerce to let them know about these projects. And by and large, we have been very surprised and pleased with the responses that we have received from a wide variety of groups. And these are examples of like some of the supportive quotes that we have received from the Ontario Chamber, LIUNA, Ducks Unlimited, Pollution Probe, Swim Drink Fish, which are very reputable regional or national environmental groups. So I may conclude with TC Energy's ask. Because we have yet to start the impact assessment, we are asking municipal staff, regional staff, and other interested parties to participate in that process. So we're more than happy to facilitate engagement directly with the regulator, the impact assessment agency, and provide that kind of oversight to staff so they can meaningfully engage in that process. On the economic side, if there's economic development officers or data that the municipality has when it comes to vendors and suppliers, to please provide that information. We are currently developing a robust and wide database of local suppliers and vendors, and we want to make sure that we are contacting those suppliers so that they are well informed about the opportunities well in advance so they can make informed decisions and planning on their businesses. And then lastly, engagement. We expect in 2023 and going forward, multiple rounds of engagement on this process. So we are looking to municipalities and interested parties to provide us with feedback on how and where do you want to be engaged, whether it's public open houses, virtual open houses, workshops, targeted groups that should be aware of this information. Any of that information will be very, very helpful in designing an engagement plan that is effective and actually reaches the audiences that should be hearing this information. That's the conclusion of my presentation. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present, and I will answer any questions if Mayor and Council choose to pose any. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Shields. First of all, thank you for doing that. I would hope that before we go to council, that you have been engaging with our staff and having conversations with them already. So I'm glad to welcome you here to the chambers, but can you affirm for me that you've already discussed some of these items with our staff?
Yes, yes, Mayor. I've had some discussions with your new CAO
Yes.
last year, and providing some information, making him aware of also like the Clean Energy Frontier and the Nuclear Innovation Institute, and in other parts of this region. And we look forward to having some ongoing discussions with staff. When it comes to transmission lines, I'm more than happy to have some detailed and in-depth discussions with staff when it comes to route selection, route options. This is great timing because we don't have any definitive plans when it comes to routing.
Okay.
But now's the time to provide that
Right.
kind of that kind of influence.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Shields. That's great. Let's go to members of council. Do you have any questions for members? Yes, the deputy mayor.
Quick question, so I understand. You're creating a pond that's going to gravity feed to a generator, which is going to, like a Niagara Falls, we'll call it, to generate hydro, correct? And then you're creating a battery storage to store the energy when not in use or not needed. Is that correct as well?
Yes, through the chair. Yes, that is correct. The whole concept of this project is to make the existing energy grid in Ontario much more efficient. So Ontario already generates clean, zero emissions energy, mostly in this part of the world through nuclear, and some hydro and some wind. But most of it is nuclear. Nuclear power is running 24 hours of the day, and then at night the demand is low. So that power has to go somewhere. Currently, Ontario either exports it at a steep discount or a loss to other jurisdictions who ironically have pump storage facilities. So they actually store that energy during off-peak hours and then redeploy it in their jurisdictions when it's needed, or Ontario grounds it. Grounds it directly into the ground and wastes it. So the idea is to capture that wasted energy, store it in a facility, and then redeploy it during peak times during the day. So that way you're being much more efficient with those electrons that the ratepayers have already paid for.
And the storage is going to be a big thing for the future. I know I'm involved with the solar side, and we had when we did their original work, there was a lot of constrained lines. You understand what that means? We could not use the power at the peak. So anyways, it's great to hear the battery backup. That's a great concept. And I mean, I can't visually understand how the pond's going to fill up by gravity, but I'm sure that's where the engineers are smarter than we are. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Other members of council? Oh, down here, Mr. Beelan, go right ahead.
The Meaford base already has a lake up there. I think it's called Mountain Lake. Do you utilize that, or is it a separate pond?
Yes, through the chair, yes, Department of National Defense has a water body on the facility. We have been in touch with the Department of National Defense. They have ruled out the use of that water body. They have looked at their facility in quite amount of detail, and they have told us if TC Energy were to use parts of their facility, this specific location that we're in is really what they can afford when it comes to completing their mission, while also allowing TC Energy to conduct our business. It's a discussion we've had with the Department of National Defense. They've made their decision, and now we are working with them on that agreement.
Excellent. Councillor Janine, I think I saw your card. Do you have a question?
Thank you. Just what was it that you were proposing for Clearview on Industrial Road? Could you just elaborate on that, please?
Yes, once we are developing a large generating station and also consuming a lot of power, we will require transmission lines in order to move that power from the base to the rest of the electrical grid, and then vice versa. We will need to consume power to pump that water back up to like the D&D lands. So there is an existing transformer station here in Stayner. Right across from the Stayner Concrete off Regional Road 91, I believe here. So our facility would be a switch yard directly adjacent to that facility. Now, we haven't yet decided and had coordination then with Hydro One as to whether it'll be to the east side, to the south side, but it'll be in close proximity to that transformer station where we have a switch yard that would move power from TC Energy to Hydro One and vice versa. We will then have buried cable lines to feed that transformer station. And the exact routing of those buried cable lines has yet to be determined. So we're looking at existing municipal roads as access points, looking at existing Hydro One small distribution lines, like those wooden telephone lines or power lines as potential right of ways that we could use. So all that still has to be determined when it comes to transmission routes from Wasaga Beach to Stainer.
We just want to keep in mind too, that that's the way into Stainer. That's the first thing people see when they're coming into Stainer as well. Just as a matter of record. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Shields, yes. Okay. Councillor Broderick, go right ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just curious about a couple of things. The height of the risers to start with.
Yes. So the risers will be approximately about 10 meters in height. So these are very large structures. We are anticipating that the depth of cover from like the top of the water to like the top of the risers will be an additional 15 meters. Again, regular pleasure craft, fishing vessels will not be impacted by these risers. The design still has to be refined. So we are contracted as I mentioned with Hatch and also Mako Kyle to fabricate and design like these inlet outlet ports. But they are going to be fairly large structures spread out over about 1.5 kilometers of space.
And how far apart would they be?
That still has to be determined. So we have to first figure out, the first step is to find out what's the turning radius of these boring machines that'll be underground. And that will then determine the size of the loop. And then once we determine the size of the loop, then we can space out these 20 risers or so in an equal fashion.
And lastly, the transmission lines, I'm assuming they're an above ground line similar to what we see now?
No, the feedback we received from a lot of residents was that they did not want typical overhead transmission lines. So we have taken that feedback into consideration. So they will be buried. So there'll be a buried lakebed transmission line and a buried on-ground transmission line as well. So the routing still has to be determined. So we will work with Wasaga Beach, with Clearview Township, and also with Simcoe County to determine what's the best route through the environmental assessment process.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else on council? I have a couple of quick questions, perhaps a little more technical, if you don't mind. The marine transmission cable, certainly Georgian Bay is not as busy as it used to be when it comes to heavy commercial traffic, shipping, lake freighters. We do occasionally still have significant ships come to Georgian Bay. So I would hope that you're working with Transport Canada and the Georgian Bay Pilotage who recognize anchor points for large ships, because a cable like that does not want to be pulled up by a large ship. So assure me that you're working with Transport Canada on this.
Yes, yes, Your Worship. So Transport Canada is one of the agencies that we have been engaged with. We will continue to be engaged with, including on our own data collection. So we are currently out on the water. We have been out on the water for a couple of seasons now doing telemetry studies. So like deep kind of radar and sonar kind of penetration to understand like the lake bottom. And then that lake bed route still has to be determined. So to your point, anchor points, traffic channels, for large freighters and pleasure craft, as well as sensitive areas on the lake bed. So whether there's shoals, there's deep gullies, archaeological sites. So for example, wreckage on like the lake bed, we wanted to avoid any of those disturbances as well.
Okay. Be very interested to see how that progresses and see how it works out. Thank you very much for your presentation. Unless there's anything further, I don't think any of our staff have any questions at this time, but I encourage you to continue to have dialogue with the staff, and they will keep us up to date on what TC Energy is doing. In the meantime, thank you for joining us here at our meeting tonight.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Herb. All the best. We do have a resolution, members of council, resolution to receive this report, or receive this presentation. Be it resolved that the presentation by Herb Shields regarding Ontario Pumped Storage Project, TC Energy, dated December 12, 2022, be received. Simple mover and seconder. Mr. MacArthur, Mr. Broderick, thank you. Any questions on the receive? I don't think we have any further direction. Do we have any further direction? I don't think we need any further direction, do we? He's continuing to meet with our staff, and they're going to keep us up to date. Correct? Is that okay, Madam Clerk? All right, so the motion will stand with a mover and seconder. Any questions? All those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you very much. Okie dokie. All right, now just a heads up, everybody. We have about 6-7 minutes before a scheduled public meeting. So we'll try to get through a few items. But in the meantime, if we have to halt, we'll go back to our public meeting in regards to what Scott McLeod's joining us for. Council, we will move to item number 7 at this time, which is the approval of the meeting minutes. Now, several of these meetings are meetings that I was unable to attend, but I'd be happy to read the resolution and then I'll look for a mover and seconder on these many meetings. Of course, these were the workshop meetings that were held by this council. Be it resolved that the minutes of the November 7, 2022 council meeting and special council meeting workshop minutes of November 2nd, November 2022 and November 3rd, 2022, November 15, 2022, November 18, 2022, and November 21, 2022. Be approved as presented. Mover and seconder, please. Mr. Walker, thank you. Deputy Mayor, thank you. Any questions? Yes, is there a question? Well, that's okay. That's fine. Okay. Anybody else?
I just was wondering, should the December 9th be included, or is that a different month, or the one we just had Friday?
Through your worship, the agenda was already completed, so it will go to the next meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
As will the inaugural meeting minutes. That'll also go to the next meeting as well. Any other questions on the minutes? Seeing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? We have enough to make a quorum. All those that carries. Thank you. All righty. Business arising from the minutes. Was there any business other than the excellent question by Councillor MacArthur? No. Communications from the mayor. I will go through these quickly because I do have a couple. Just from closed session, we do have a bylaw that will be enacting the appointments of members identified in closed session to township committees and boards for the term of council 2022-2025. And so that recommendation will be a little bit later on in our bylaw. Sorry, that bylaw will be on our agenda a little bit later on in the agenda. And so at this time, be it resolved that the bylaw be enacted. Oh, that's not we do the bylaw right now. The bylaw is later. Yeah, we are going to do that. Correct. All righty. Further, the Canadian Forces Morale and Welfare Services, basically base Borden, had their Canadian Armed Forces Day at Air Show, a letter of thanks and for our participation. Council, Clearview Township supported the air show, and they gave us a great thanks for that. The Creemore BIA request to co-manage the tree maintenance. Is there any questions in regards to that one? No questions at this time? Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
In regards to the request to co-manage, do we have people on staff who are capable of managing trees, or are we looking at an outside arborist to work with them?
I believe there's a bit of a combination in that. We do have some staff that are capable of, safely operating chainsaws, et cetera.
Yeah.
But I believe that for full tree removal, we always go to a contractor to do that work in a fulsome manner. I think that's the best I could do. I'm not sure. Do we have Mike Ron or Dan Perot who could help us with that request? I don't know if Mr. Perot, can you hear me? Dan Perot, are you on board? He's in the Zoom meeting. There you are. Hello, Dan.
Hi, Your Worship.
Did you hear the question from the Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I did. I can certainly inform council that if you recall, maybe the new ones won't, but in 2021, we embarked on a tree inventory and management plan, urban tree renewal, I think it was called.
Yep.
So that work is nearing completion to provide, our Davy Resource Group is to provide us with a management plan for that work that they've done. So there'll be some next steps needed once we receive the report, and I hope to have it prior to budget deliberations, but like I said, I'm waiting for that. So that will hopefully steer us in a direction where we can make a determination that certain trees need to be trimmed or certain trees need to be come down, and whether we can tackle that ourselves, or if we need to hire outside help for that.
Okay, Dan, I think I understand that. Paul, does that help you out?
Yeah, thank you, Dan. I think it's great if we can do a lot of this stuff ourselves. And when I see the comments about co-managing and some of the pictures that were sent to us from previous efforts, I just think it's really good if we can do a lot of it ourselves, sort of thing. So,
okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Yes, Mr. Broderick.
Just so everyone understands, I believe the BIA is looking for more of an arborist style of pruning.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Okay. Is any other questions then on this ask? Yes, Mr. McCarthy.
Yeah, I'm sure, as Paul said, we've probably got staff more than capable with a bit of extra training that could meet their needs.
Yeah. Mr. Pro, just on the training point, we do have some qualified chainsaw operators in our staff. Is that correct?
Yes, certainly, Your Worship. If not all, most are.
Yeah. As far as chainsaw safety and operations, yes. To Mr. Broderick's point, arborist quality of handling trees and managing trees is the question that was brought up by the BIA. So, right.
That's my understanding as well, Your Worship. And like I said, we hired Davy Resource Group, which are arborists, and they'll provide us a management plan hopefully in the next month or so.
Okay. All right. Members of council, would it be all right if I ask for a simple motion to have this item referred to Dan for further comment and advises if there's anything more that needs to be done? Does that sound fair? All right. Madam Clerk, do you have a little motion for me on that? Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, that's all right, Your Worship. Quick question
Yes.
is, will staff be looking at the cost to be able to do so also?
I think that would be appropriate.
Okay, that this item be referred to the Deputy Director of Public Works to investigate costs associated with providing the necessary training to Public Works. The Public Works with regards to arborist training. I think that's what we're looking for.
Sounds logical. Members of council, do you want to hear that again?
Ooh.
Okay. We're all good? All right. We'll ask for a mover and seconder on the motion. I see Mr. Broderick and the Deputy Mayor. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? All right, that carries. Thank you very much for allowing us to put that through. And further, 9.4 is the 1944 Royal Canadian Army Cadets request for utilizing the Creemore Arena. I read that one with interest. I know that they're a very active organization. Is there any, Mr. Vachon, are you on board there? Mr. Vachon? Hello, Terry, how are you?
Good evening, Your Worship and Council.
Good. Do you have any comments on this request for the arena, the Creemore Arena space?
No, nothing to add, Your Worship. I think we've historically always provided them that space. As you know, we as staff can't provide discounts or freebies, nope. So that's why they're asking for council for the support. But our department has no issues.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to confirm that. Does anybody on council have any questions or concerns or any suggestions? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Terry, thank you for being there for a minute. The clerk just pointed that out to me again. There is the air rifle marksmanship team. Is that suitable in our community hall? Have you researched that?
No, Your Worship, we haven't researched that. My understanding is that they have been on site before, but we can do a detailed review of that. But as far as we know, we don't think it's an issue at this point.
All right. I'm just interested in whether we accept the liability for that type of activity in our community hall, whether that would be something to question the insurance company or not. I expect and fully support that the air cadets would be insured. I'm sure. Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Terry, would they be looking to use the arena, like the dry arena, or are they looking for the community hall?
We haven't been provided, sorry, through your worship to Deputy Mayor Van Severen. They haven't provided those details yet, but we're assuming that they probably would want to use the entire facility. Maybe the hall for like gathering for people, and then also the floor itself for their event.
Thank you.
Well, perhaps, again, another motion, we can get some further information and perhaps have a meeting with the commander to set this up with Jason Higgins and see if we can sort out exactly what it is that we can or cannot do for them. Given the question of insurance would be something that I'd be interested in. So members of council, could we have a motion to direct this to our staff through the CAO to have this reviewed for presentation at another council meeting? Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship, that this item be referred to the Director of Recreation regarding the request for air rifle marksmanship team activity and to report back to council.
Okay, we can refer it directly to Terry. I was thinking of John only because of the insurance aspects of it, but either way, Terry will manage it through his supervisor, John. Okay.
Thank you.
Council, any questions on that motion? Yes, go ahead, Robert Walker.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick add there. They also talk about leaving stuff there. We're talking April or May. Now, do we have lacrosse or activities in that arena facility during April and May? That would be another issue, but that would be looked after through the motion that we have before us. So that's fine. Motion will work with.
Yeah. Okay.
Deal with all that. Thank you.
All right. I think that's fair. It'll be part of the discussion that Terry, the CAO, and perhaps myself could have with the CD. Okay. Any other questions? All right. Seeing none, Madam Clerk, you've got the motion. I'll prepare to call it. All those in favor? And that carries unanimous. And did I get a mover and seconder on that? I think I didn't.
Through Your Worship, no.
Oh.
If we could have one, that would be great.
Deneen and Walker. How would that be? Thank you. Sorry about that. Got ahead of myself. Anyway, just for the benefit of the public and members of council, obviously these two items would have been handled in a previous council meeting, but because this is our first actual business meeting, we haven't got to that point yet. So this is why it's a little bit awkward on these two items, but this is not normally how it's done. But thank you. Good to see everybody. The last thing I'm going to read, and then I'm going to go to the public meeting, is a little bit past 6:30. And that is that be it resolved that communications items listed as item 9.2 to 9.4 on the agenda be received and filed for information. Can I have a mover and seconder on that one? Mr. Broderick, Mr. MacArthur, any questions? All those in favor? And that carries unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, members of council, I draw your attention to item number 6, which is our public meeting scheduled for 6:30. According to my watch, it is 6:36. Is that correct? Looking at Sarah, because we have a discrepancy between the digital clock and the analog clock that's in the room. So there you go. And we're going to go to the public meeting. So in the public meeting format, for those new members of council, we have a special script to read, which I have right here in front of me. And I appreciate the clerk getting it prepared for me. So I have it here in front of me. First of all, I'm going to welcome our chief building official. Nice to see you, Scott. And then I'll read. We will now initiate. The public meeting is being held pursuant to Section 7 of the Building Code Act 1992 as amended to present and obtain public input on the municipality's proposed building permit fee bylaw revision. As identified in the notice of public meeting, please be advised that your written and or oral comments will form part of the public record. Your communication and any personal information herein will be available to the item B. The following public meeting will involve a brief presentation by the Township's Chief Building Official, Scott McLeod, including a brief explanation of any written comments received, a period of public comments or questions, if any, and an opportunity for questions by council. At this time, I'd like to introduce the Chief Building Official for the Township of Clearview, Scott McLeod, who will be making a presentation of the building permit fee bylaw revisions that is being considered. Scott, nice to see you. Have you guys got that computer sorted out over there?
Good to see you as well, Your Worship. We're just going to load up the presentation and then.
Yeah, it's the first time, Scott, I think we've done this with you in person and in the virtual hybrid world. So we're still kind of ironing out those little tech details, but
And
I'm
through your
quite-
worship to Scott, I do
Yes.
have your presentation. If you'd like, I can share it on your behalf.
All right. The clerk is stepping right up. Okay,
Okay, just 1 minute here.
you go right ahead.
Yep.
Scott, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So we're meeting this evening for a public meeting on proposed building permit fee bylaw revisions. And the purpose of the meeting is to not increase our building permit fees by the annual indexing. So it's a bit unusual. It's a good news type of public meeting that you certainly want to be before council with. With the public meeting, notice and circulation occurred. Notice of the proposed public meeting on building permit fee revisions bylaw amendment has been given in accordance with the Building Code Act. And that notice was given on November the 17th. And the posting was via our website, and we were also posting it at the calendar as an information item. Along with the notice of the public meeting, there was details regarding the proposed fee changes for council and for the public, and so the public could provide comment and be aware. So again, the report was presented through the notice and accompanying the staff report on the proposed fees was also just information on the building department reserve balance, and as well as what our existing permit fee schedule consists of. Thanks. So where we're at right now in terms of the review process is we're holding the public meeting. Following the public meeting, input from the public and council and staff, there'll be a staff recommendation or report. Again, as part of the public meeting, there already has sort of been a report, a staff recommendation and report floated out there so that both public and council could react to. But following this meeting, there'll be a further report produced and brought forward to a future council meeting in January for council's consideration. At that meeting, council will either approve or deny the proposed building permit fee revisions, and if the bylaw is accepted in terms of change, then the building permit fees not being changed, essentially remaining at 0% increase, would come into effect for January 1st. So it'd be a retroactive passing of the bylaw. Next slide, please. So under the freedom of information, we certainly invite any of the members of the public to comment on proposed building permit fee bylaw revisions and to engage in the process with us. Please be advised that your comments will form a part of the public record. Your communication and any personal information therein will be made available to the public unless you expressly request its removal. Thank you. So by way of background, our building permit fees have been in, our bylaw has been in existence for some time. They're adjusted annually every year by the construction index. And typically that ranges in a range of 1% to 3%. And it's a good measure for dealing with annual increases to such a bylaw. Last year, the increase amount was 12.6%, I believe it was. And we also came back to council last year with recommendation and public meeting to not change our building permit fees. We felt at that time, as we do this year, that an increase was not necessary or recommended. But the way the indexing works is it's based on the construction index. It's also used for other measures through the municipality, such as development charges, and determining what that index is. We rely on the input from the Treasury Department, from our treasurer, in terms of getting that information from wherever construction index information comes from. It's the same information that's used also by the county of Simcoe as well for some of their bylaws. But this year, the prescribed construction index increase is proposed to be 15.6%. So had we not brought this forward, our fees would have automatically gone up by 15.6%. And so that's why we're bringing it forward for council's consideration. Next page, please. So currently the building department has a reserve balance, which is $1.3 million. It's a cost stabilization fund that we report on each year on an annual basis. The current fees and charges bylaw for the building permit fees effectively covers our full cost of administration, inspection, and enforcement of the building permits, as well as maintaining the cost stabilization fund. So again, just sharing this information in terms of where the reserve fund is for the building department and where our fees are at, and given the construction that we are realizing, again, staff is bringing this forward because we don't feel that it's necessary to have a large increase this year. In fact, we feel that should be zero. So with that, the recommendation that's been proposed is to not increase building permit fees by the annual indexing as set out in our building permit fee schedule for this year. Again, we feel that the increase of 15.6% is not considered to be necessary or appropriate at this time. There is no financial impact for the 2023 budget. When we forecast forward for each year, our considerations are very conservative, and we certainly didn't forecast on an increase. And so that's really all the information I have for council and the public's information. And we haven't received any correspondence or feedback from the public on this item, but we're certainly open to any feedback and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Scott. All right. Moving along with procedures then. Questions from members of the public may be directed to or responded to by the township's chief building official, but should be addressed through the chair. Are there any questions from the public? There is. Tell you what, would you be able to share the podium for this, Mr. Charlton, so that way I can hear you? Thank you very much. Mr. Charlton is here. Thank you.
Good evening.
Nice to see you.
Your Worship, members of council and staff, Mr. McLeod. I'd like to ask Mr. McLeod a couple of questions, certainly with regard to Appendix A in the report. Line 4 has a heading, amount of reserve fund established to administer and enforce the Building Code Act. But there is no amount in that. So I just learned now that apparently there is a reserve account. But in the report, there is a accumulated surplus, which I presume that is in fact, the reserve account. Is that correct?
Scott, if you could just turn the microphone on there beside you, just so it's on. Thank you.
Through your worship, yes, the amount on Appendix A, the surplus closing balance is our reserve fund.
So I guess what is the purpose of the reserve? It's a stabilization fund, but how does that work?
Sure. Again, through your worship, the cost stabilization fund is essentially there for capital projects, that sort of thing, within the department, whether it be previously we now lease vehicles, but sometimes vehicles can be a capital expenditure. We just implemented some new software that would be a capital expenditure that could come from that reserve fund. The other thing that the stabilization fund would be used for is, if you look back through the history of the township, there were years when we had lean years of the building department where we actually ran a deficit. And so it's to offset those lean years as well.
Thank you. Looking at the schedule or Appendix A, the worst deficit that occurred in the last 15 years was $93,000. So the accumulated surplus as of December 21 would cover that 14 times over. And the average deficit over that 15-year period in years that deficits occurred was $38,000. And that was all before we had the increase in building activity, which has put in a lot more money into that reserve. I'm just wondering how much surplus is enough.
Again, through your worship, with cost stabilization funds, what sort of the rule of thumb is 1.5 to 2 times 1.5 to 2.5 times the annual operating budget of the building department is what seems to be an industry standard.
So what would that amount to on average then? 1 to 1.2%? It's 1.5 to 2.5. So it'd be whatever our annual operating costs are for the building department times that. Which would be roughly? I believe it's in excess of, and don't quote me, I believe it's in excess of 700,000 in that range. 700,000. That's correct. So 2% would be $14,000? No, it's times, like you take your annual budget. Times the total. Yes. I see. Okay. Yep. So if we look at what's there as of December 31st, 1.3 million, that would be about 2 times, give or take. Give or take. Thank you. I'd like to address the chair if I could.
Okay.
Under the Building Code Act, with reference to report on fees, every 12 months, each principal authority shall prepare a report that contains such information as may be prescribed about any fees authorized under Clause 1 and costs of the principal authority to administer and enforce this act. The act further stipulates that under annual report, the report referred to in subsection 7-4 of the Act shall contain the following information with respect to fees authorized. A, total fees collected in the 12-month period ending no earlier than 3 months before the release of the report. B, the direct and indirect costs of delivering services related to the administration and enforcement of the Act in the 12-month period referred to above. C, a breakdown of the costs described in Clause B into at least the following categories: direct costs of administration and enforcement of the Act, including the review of applications for permits and inspection of buildings, and indirect costs of administration and enforcement of the Act, including support and overhead costs. And if a reserve fund has been established for any purpose relating to the administration or enforcement of the Act, the amount of the fund at the end of the 12-month period referred to in Clause A. I prepared this when I received, or when I read the report that has been published for this agenda. The report table does not, as far as I can see, conform to the Act, as it does not provide the financial information required. In the circumstances, I do not believe Council should accept the report and that it be referred back to the Building Committee. Turning to the Building Code Act, under a section headed Fees, 7-2, the total amount of the fees authorized under Clause 1 must not exceed the anticipated reasonable costs of the principal authority to administer and enforce this Act. In the past 5-year period, ending December 31st, 21, contributed surpluses have already totaled $1.6 million. Last year, we had a $300,000 surplus. If that was the same amount this year, that would be $2 million sitting in the reserve account. This makes me wonder whether our building permit fees may be in excess of what is permitted under the Building Act. I recommend that Council ask Building Department to re-examine the fee structure to ensure that it conforms with the Building Code Act, to report back to Council prior to approving the 2023 fee schedule with recommendations with respect to 1, appropriate permit fees, and 2, setting a limit on the accumulated surplus and/or reserve fund. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for those comments. I don't have an answer for you on that. I would refer to our building official to answer the one direct question. Is our building permit fees in conformity with the Act?
Through your worship, we do an annual report in the first quarter of each year. To the best of my knowledge, it is in conformity with the Building Code Act. That's what we seek out to report on. It does report on the direct and the indirect costs. This is just an excerpt from that report in terms of the Appendix A. Is just setting out what our amounts are, and it's giving you a history of what the positive and negative surpluses have been over that time period.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. McLeod, and thank you, Mr. Charlton, for bringing forward that information. Well researched. Thank you. For a second time, is there anybody else in the public who wishes to address the public or address this meeting, the public meeting? And for the third time, none. Very well. And we will go to members of council. Does any member of council have any comment or question to our staff in regards to this presentation, this public meeting? Yes, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Scott, just to, I mean, I hear your two times factor. When you do your budgets and us being new to it, we've had a pretty good year last year on collecting fees, and you do your estimates based on a certain amount. Based on what you estimated our numbers to be, we exceeded those numbers? Yes, no? How did we do? Just roughly. I'm not asking for.
Yeah, through your worship to the deputy mayor. Certainly every year when we forecast forward in terms of our fee, we actually look backwards. We don't look ahead and guess in terms of, that we're going to see all this growth or whatever. We look back historically to see what we have. It's a very conservative approach in terms of what our fee expectations are. And so in terms of what we budgeted for fees, if that's, I understand it's a question for 2021, because that's the only report that we have at this point, and what was realized. It's not what we had anticipated for sure. It was in excess of what we had budgeted for.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Is any other members of council? Yes, Councillor MacArthur.
Yeah. So I'm assuming this report is all based on the year ending in 21. Is it fair to ask the question, a projection of where the reserve will be at the end of 22 or at this time or no?
I guess we're late in December. What are you seeing there, Scott?
Again, through your worship, to Councillor MacArthur. We expect to have a surplus again this year, just based on the tremendous amount of building permit activity. I wouldn't predict what that is at this point. One of the things that does happen at the end of the year, and certainly through the treasurer, we've had dialogue. There's a certain amount of revenue that we're actually receiving this year, very late in the year for permits, that won't actually be realized as construction until 2023, and we'll probably defer some of that revenue to the next year. That happens from year to year. You're collecting fees, but you're actually doing the work in another year, and so it's just smart business to do that. So we haven't made those decisions at this point for what's going to move over into 2023, but for sure, you're quite correct that the report schedule or Appendix A is based on the year end 2021, and we do anticipate a surplus this year.
All right, thank you, Mr. MacArthur. Nothing further. All right, I have a brief question directly for you, sir, Mr. McLeod, and then perhaps the treasurer might want to chime in as well. During the audit portion of our environment here, when we do the municipal audit of the entire operation, do you meet with the auditors as a department, as the building department? Do you have this discussion in regards to these fees and reserve handlings? Is that, I'm asking for you, do you meet as the senior manager or all through the treasury?
Again, to your worship, we do certainly have questions that flow through the audit from the auditors to the building department. Some of them are filled directly through the treasury department and some through ourselves to help them understand as well.
Okay. Madam Treasurer.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, the building department reserve is part of our regular reserve schedule, and the auditors do go over that with a fine tooth comb every year. So there's questions to me, there's questions to the building department, and then there's also proof of backup from one balance to the next. So.
Okay. I just find that interesting, the comments from the member of the public. So, okay, we'll watch for that. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. So if there's nothing further, this concludes the public meeting with respect to the municipality's proposed building permit fee revision amending bylaw. We thank all those who participated in comment and for their interest in this matter. These comments will be considered by council prior to the enactment of the building permit fee bylaw revision. So I get to use my gavel for the first time and say the public meeting is closed. Here we go. Thank you, Scott. All right. Members of council, turning back to your agenda, just about 7 o'clock. We do have a recommendation. Sorry. In in this public session, we have it be it resolved that the report PB 066-2022 dated December 12, 2022 be received. Mover and seconder on the motion. MacArthur and Broderick, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move to page 4. And on page 4, we have county reports for information. Deputy Mayor Van Stavern, just so you know, when we go to county, oftentimes this council wants to hear a little bit about what we're doing. But as it turns out, Deputy Mayor, we're going to be at inaugural tomorrow. So our council meeting tomorrow is the sort of the kickoff. But if I may, I'd like to ask you, since I was unable to attend the orientation, if you have any comments about orientation.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. For those who are in the public or listening, if you're not aware, the mayor and the deputy mayor all proceed and assist with county council. So a few weeks back, I was a lone wolf and had the ability to go make my presence known at county council. It was very, very interesting. And this is where we make a lot of decisions and stuff on our public issues, our public operations, whether it be seniors homes, seniors homes, ambulance, roads, stuff like that. So it's tomorrow we get initiated into the office, and we'll be juggling for some positions for the warden, deputy warden, chairs, vice chairs, and stuff like that. So it's going to be an exciting time. For myself being new, it's definitely a learning experience, and Doug tomorrow is going to be leading me by my hand to tell me, hopefully to assist me and guide me. No, I'm just kidding. And it's going to be a very ceremonial occasion tomorrow, and which time after that we'll be starting to get down to work. So
excellent. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I look forward to having you at the table. And at that table, we're all referred to as councillors, all of us. So Councillor Van Stavern, Councillor Measures. How about that? All right. I look forward to that tomorrow. It's always something to participate in the inaugural at the county. It's very ceremonial. And in fact, it's the only place in all of our Simcoe County municipalities where you will see the head of council wearing a tricorn hat. One of those, tricorn hats they get to wear. It's like, whatever. It's kind of a funny ceremonial thing. I always make fun of the warden when he wears it. So anyway, so in future council meetings, we'll give you some updates on some of the activities that county council's been up to, and we'll look forward to sharing that with you. All right, members of council, we're going to go to your council reports and committee announcements. And again, we have a strong tradition here at Clearview to hear from all of our councillors and all of their wards. So I'm going to start with Councillor Deneen in Ward 1. Hello, Councillor.
Hello. Thank you. I just wanted to say a big thanks to everybody involved putting together our holiday party and our inaugural evening. It was really enjoyable, and we really appreciate all the hard work that went into it. our council orientation wrapped up last Friday, and I wanted to say thank you to senior staff, the CAO, John Ferguson, to Barbara, and our guest presenters. It was really good. I didn't get that the last time round. And yes, we all learned something new, I'm sure. December 6th, going back to Nottawa area. December 6th, the Nottawa firefighters at Station 6 held a food drive. They decorated the truck and had the ATV out and lights, and they drove around Nottawa with the food donations. And I want to thank them for doing that, and the community for all of their support. It was well received by everyone. And if anybody had the opportunity to drive through Nottawa last Saturday, I hope you noticed there wasn't a parking spot on the main street, down our side streets, anywhere. It was so good to see. We had something going on at the community hall. D&L Variety is always busy. The door knock, our newest edition of the Nottawa General Store. We have the store that sells the equestrian accessories, and everything was busy. Down the side streets, down towards the ballpark, everything was full. It looked like fishing season on steroids. It was really great. And last evening, last but not least, we had a tractor parade through Nottawa. The kids all decorated wagons and tractors with lights and all sorts of kids and paraphernalia. And it was really, really nice. And it was a beautiful evening and everybody had fun. And I just want to wish everybody a safe and happy holiday season. And that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Deneen. The tractor parade was excellent. It caught my attention when the diesel tractor started going by, and it was like thunk, 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 thunk. I was like, oh, I know what's going on outside. And I took a look, and there it was. It was great.
Just the 2-cylinder.
Yeah, it was kind of neat. Yeah, it was neat. So thank you for that. Councillor MacArthur, you're going to be next.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to continue on from what Councillor Deneen said about being new to this spot, and can't say enough how welcoming and helpful the staff have all been through the orientation. It's been a great experience so far. Town of Creemore, lots happens. I just like to reach out and thank the members of the public and council and everybody else for a terrific Santa Claus parade there a week or two ago. And I think it was put down maybe one of the biggest parades ever. And on another note, the week before that, we had probably our worst night with burning of the old Sovereign Hotel. And I'd like to reach out to Acting Chief and all your men for doing a terrific job. I don't know how there's as much of that building left standing as there is. Fantastic job. And that's all I have to report this evening, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Mr. MacArthur. Appreciate that. Now, Mr. Broderick, you're next.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's been kind of a busy month. I'm going to start back on the 8th. Attended the Clearview Accessory Advisory Committee meeting where we reviewed the plans for the new Lowell Fire Hall and Works building. Also on the 8th, the BIA meeting. The 12th, a landowners meeting. On the 15th, attended the first Clearview Council orientation session, and again on the also on the 15th, attended the Clearview Tourism Stakeholders Focus Group. That was an interesting affair. We're going to see more on that later. Also on the 15th, attended the Clearview Library Board meeting. And on the 16th, the Clearview Chamber of Commerce elections, officiated by our own Councillor Walker, who did an excellent job. We have a new board at the Clearview Chamber. On the 18th, another orientation session. And the 21st, the swearing in and council orientation. 22nd, the Creemore BIA AGM. And on the 24th, the flag raising for the elimination of the violence against women. The 25th Clearview staff party, which was very, very well done. And on the 29th, the Clearview Library special meeting, the CAO review, and the December the 1st, the tree lighting in Stainer, and on the 2nd in Creemore. And then on the 3rd, both Stainer and Creemore Santa Claus parades. I was not with council on both parades, as that was my last duty as president of the Shrine Club. So
right, that's right.
December the 9th, the last council orientation session, and that brings us up to date.
Thank you very much. Well done. Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's going to be short, but I would just like to say, first of all, orientation was a great experience. And I'm going to say the wealth of knowledge from our staff and from the special guests that were presenters. You're never too old to learn. And I found that this was one of the better orientation sessions that I have been involved in. To those involved with the inaugural, the parades, and a Christmas evening, thank you for a job well done. Staff and all those involved, excellent. And I know there's a lot of time commitments, but it was greatly appreciated, all the work that you do in those avenues that we have. To the tree lighting on December the 1st, to those that helped decorate the park, the tree lighting for Stainers, thank you again. Anytime you go by there, many times there are people out there taking pictures in the gazebo, around the stars. So it has been an added feature, a delightful feature in Stainer to have that park situated where it is, and the colors that radiate from that area. So again, thank you to staff involvement for that again. And we talk about our staff, and if it wasn't for our staff and our volunteers, should be pretty dull in some of those spots, and would be a lot of things that we would not be able to do without that help and volunteers and staff. So thank you so much. And I'm just going to say Merry Christmas to all and a Happy New Year. I'm Old Order. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good comments. Councillor Beelan.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm a newcomer. I thought the orientation was fantastic.
Good.
So I'm going to expect it to be better every year from now on, as Mr. Walker said. December 10th, I attended the Legion Christmas dinner. It was fantastic. The food was great. It was a good time. They had a dance there as well. The fire department was there as one of the groups, and they presented some awards. December 11th, the Legion also had a kids' Christmas party where Santa was there, and I heard it was well attended and a lot of fun. I will be meeting with the Winterama Committee in the new year. They're sort of on pause now. I think everything's running good there from what I was told. And finally, there was a food drive train that goes around the subdivisions in New Lowell. I missed it this year, but I heard they collected a lot of food, and I'm not sure. I'm going to find out if they're going to have another trip through the subdivisions, but it's something they do every year, and the kids love it, and I don't want to miss it. So hopefully they do it again.
Right on.
Thank you. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Deputy Mayor, do you have anything else you'd like to add tonight?
Well, I think most people have hit up on it. The only thing I will say that the second week of November, in your absence, Your Worship, we did the official presentation for the SWIFT program in New Lowell, where we had our MP and our MPP there talking about, I'm sorry, our MP, Brian Saunderson, and the MP from the Newmarket area about the installation of all the fiber optic and high-tech communications that's being pushed right now. And we recognize as a council, and as does the province, the importance of communication within the rural areas. And it was an official thank you or presentation to say they're aware of it. And in our case, New Lowell has been provided with the high speed. It hasn't, I understand it's not totally complete, but it's pretty close to being complete, as have 8 projects in Simcoe County. So, you know, we're advocating for the whole area, and that's important. So one step at a time, and that's really good. I'd just like to speak about the Santa Claus parades. And I've been as a past chair of the Santa Claus parade in Stayner. This year, the weather sure was pretty tough for a lot of participants. And my daughter, who is the ambassador for the G&E, came back absolutely frozen. But kudos to everybody who participated, and it's a yearly thing that just keeps on giving. So thank you very much to all the participants, and we'll enjoy this Christmas season. Thank you.
Well done, Paul. Thank you very much. It was a very cold day, but I have to tell you, it was really enjoyable to be there at the parade. Members of council, I will take a moment and just give you a couple of things that I've been working on, and that things that are coming up in our community. This morning, I was signed to an embargo of information regarding our Collingwood General Marine Hospital, and that was released from the embargo when the Minister of Health arrived at the Collingwood General Marine Hospital and made the announcement that the MRI is going to be coming to our hospital, MRI diagnostic imaging. The minister said that there would be funding available through the Ministry of Health to continue to support that, and diagnostic services will be improved dramatically at the Collingwood General Marine Hospital. So that's a big change for Collingwood Hospital, and we're really pleased that that happened. I was able to be joined at that with many members of the board from the Collingwood General Marine Hospital, as well as Councillor Hamlin, Councillor Matrosoff, Mayor Matrosoff, Mayor Hamlin, Mayor Smith was there. Our MPP, Brian Saunderson, did a great job leading the meeting, and it was just a really good event to be at, and just demonstrates that the entire region is very much supportive of our Collingwood General Marine Hospital. So I wanted to share that with you. It was a great to be there to represent Clearview. Now, listen. Few seems like hours ago, but let's say 2 hours ago, I got to join a lovely young lady in our community. Her name is Ina Evans, and she was having a little birthday party over there at the home, and she was just happened to be turning 100 years old. So that was quite spectacular to go see her, and she was just beaming, and the residents were sure cheering her on as Ken Parton, the piper, piped them in. So it was a really nice little event to be able to attend that just a few hours ago. So happy birthday to Ina Evans. Coming up this weekend is the Stayner-Siskins 50th anniversary alumni game on Saturday night. It's at the Stayner Community Center, and I would encourage any of our residents who know and cheer for our Siskins over the 50 years that they've been in existence to come on out, enjoy a bit of an alumni game. Lots of former players are going to be there, former coaches are going to be there. It's going to be a really good night. They're doing a little bit of a fundraiser for the food bank as part of it. And so I would encourage anyone to come on out and support our Stayner-Siskins. They're doing a great job. I do want to mention the unfortunate fire that happened in Creemore on Mill Street, the former Sovereign building. I'm quite impressed with the outpouring of support from our community to support first of all, the residents. There were, I believe, 6 residents that were obviously displaced by the fire, but also to the business community that is supporting Otto and his restaurant. So I think that's really, really great to see, and very heartwarming to know that people in our community care very much and are supporting that. So I encourage people to do that during this Christmas season. And finally, I'll just take a moment of personal information just to share with you that I'm I've completed my my radiation, but I'm not feeling 100% still. So I will be in and out of the office a little bit, and I will still be participating in some things, but I do have still some issues that I'm dealing with. But I wanted you all to know that I'm working every day to make sure that I'm here to continue to do this work, and I'm available, and I'll be leaning on you a little bit in the next 2 or 3 months to maybe cover things like the deputy mayor mentioned about going to things. So I appreciate your support, members of council. Thank you. All right, guys, we're going to move on. I know our staff are waiting, and I know we've got people in the audience that are waiting. So we're going to move to item number 12, department reports. And this is the request for municipal support resolution, which you heard about during public participation period. So, council, there is a resolution that's in our agenda. At this time, though, I'd like to go to Amy Can, who is joining us here at the table for the first time when I get to see you here. But I know you've been with us now for a few weeks. Amy, would you like to speak to PB 067-20-22 before I go ahead and read a full resolution?
Thank you, Your Worship. I am more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. As you know as well, James Marzato of Compass Energy is in attendance. He's the proponent of the project. He can answer questions as well for you. And please note a couple of sort of housekeeping matters. The proponent should be referred to as Stainer BESS2 Limited Partnership. And also the maximum contract capacity is an amended 40 megawatts. So that's sort of just some housekeeping information for you. There are options outlined on page 5 of your staff report that council may wish to entertain, including receipt of the report only. Supporting the project using wording outlined in the report Appendix A, and a third option to support the project using wording outlined in Appendix A, plus 4 conditions respecting the need for future development approvals. And again, I'm happy to answer questions.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Can. And it's just a review for members of council, members of who are joining us this term. Those that we had a public presentation. It wasn't a public meeting, but it was a public presentation from the proponent, Stainer BESS2 Limited Partnership, in regards to this project. And so we just had a presentation from them. We didn't have a public meeting. Council, there's a very lengthy resolution. I'm prepared to read it unless anybody has any questions right off the top. I'm sorry, ma'am. Yeah, I tell you what. The clerk has it, so maybe she can put it up on screen. Believe it or not, it actually fills 2 pages. So it might be worth having it up on the screen so you can have a better look at it, and then we can have a good conversation. Sure. Yeah. All right. All right, here we go. Council, do you just want me to read this and then we'll carry on from there, or? Okay. All right. Whereas the proponent is proposing to construct and operate a long-term reliability project as defined with the characteristics outlined in the table below under the expedited long-term request proposals, ELT1 RFP, issued by the Independent Electricity System Operator, known as the IESO. The proponent is the Stainer BESS2 Limited Partnership. The location, the legal description, is part lot 56, parcel 196, Nottawasaga, R0 RO 1057176, Clearview, Ontario, known as the municipal lands. And item 2 is pursuant to the ELT1 RFP proposals that receive the formal support of the local jurisdiction authorities for all project communities in which the long-term reliability project is located, in form of a support resolution, will be awarded rated criteria points for the purpose of ranking the proposal in relation to other proposals or a contract under the ELT1 RFP, and that the council of the Township of Clearview support the development, construction, and operation of the long-term reliability project on the municipal lands. And item 4, this resolution's sole purpose is to enable the proponent to receive rated criteria points under ELT1 RFP or to satisfy the obligations under any awarded ELT1 contract. and may not be used for the purpose of any other form of approval in relation to the proposal or long-term reliability project, or for any other purpose. Rated criteria points will be used to rank the proponent's proposal in relation to other proposals received by the IESO under ELT1 RFP. And then these comments come from council, or come from our staff. And further, that prior to the issuance of a building permit, site plan approval from the township be obtained. And further, that the township support does not presuppose approval of the lands for development or land division in terms of township or other agency approval permitted. And further, that the formal Planning Act application review process may reveal other or different matters that may be dealt with prior to the development of the lands. And further, that council support does not guarantee availability of municipal servicing capacity for the project property. That's the resolution. I'll look for a mover and seconder. Mr. Broderick, seconded by Mr. Van Stavern. Okay. All right, Madam Clerk, is there anything that I missed when I read that? Although it's kind of an unusual, awkward resolution. It's not one that we normally see, but would you like to explain some from it?
So through your worship, that's by the looks of it, and maybe Director of Planning can assist, but that's a standard form that the ministry is looking for. So if you'd like, what we can do is we can just that's their standard form.
Okay, I understand it's standard form. It's just not in the form that this council has always read resolutions before.
And
so
I can make that.
That's okay. We're trying to work this out. Over to Ms. Can. Again, the last few lines that said clearly that while we're offering our support for this does not give them permission based on building permits. It does not give permission based on land use agreements or other approvals from other agencies. It does not give them formal Planning Act application process approvals, and it doesn't guarantee the availability of municipal servicing. Is that correct?
Yes.
Anything you want to add?
That's correct. So we wanted to ensure that there wasn't any confusion in council issuing support for the project. The support is purely for the purposes of the ISO points process, and it doesn't represent any approvals as far as a Planning Act approvals process or any building permit issuance, that kind of thing.
Excellent. All right. Then at that point, any members of council would have any questions to this? Seeing none. Thank you. I'm prepared to call the motion then. Those in favor? I'm going to show that as carrying unanimously. Thank you for coming in. All right. I'm sure there's a lot of work yet to do on this, but it's glad to see it there. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Okay, council. Moving on in department reports. Just got to slide down to my next one. Oh, it's the Bill 109. Oh, great. Amy, don't you go anywhere. Refresh your coffee. Okay. Report. Be it resolved that report PB 069-2022 dated December 12, 2022 be received, and further that the bylaw be enacted to amend site plan control bylaw 07-17 to designate the chief administrative officer or their designate as site control approval authority for the township. And further that the bylaw be enacted amending delegation of powers bylaw 20-16 to delegate signing authority for all site plan agreements to the chief administrative officer or their designate, as having the authority to bind the corporation on such matters and the authority to determine completeness of Planning Act applications to the director of planning and building or their designate. Okay, let's put this on the floor. Is there a mover and seconder? Mr. Walker, Mr. Broderick, thank you. Amy, do you have any comments on this before we go to the CAO too? Go ahead.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Your Worship. In this report, I have attempted to distill Bill 109 into the changes that are urgently requiring our attention at this time. There were other impacts that Bill 109 had on municipalities across Ontario, but at this time just simplified it to the items that we need to deal with immediately. So namely, that is identifying an approval authority for site plan control in the township. So Bill 109 essentially caused no council in the province to have site plan control approval authority anymore. So it's not just reserved for this township or this county, it's across the province. So simply means that we have to identify a person, a staff member, in this case, the CAO, to be the approval authority for site plan control. And just a note, Bill 109 shouldn't be confused with the hotly discussed Bill 23, which has just received royal assent. There is other legislation coming as well, open for comment at this time. So those items we needn't discuss right now, but certainly we'll continue to bring forward information and changes to council for consideration as they come. So happy to chat about any more specific questions for you, but that's the essence of the matter. So.
All right, thank you. Before I go to council, I'll go to the CIO. Mr. CIO, hello, John. Can you hear me okay? Yeah.
Yes, I can. Hi.
Thank you, John. Yeah, thank you for joining us. My thought is, do you have any comments on this presentation or this report before we go to questions?
No, just a minor comment. Any approvals that would be granted by me or a designate would follow any professional recommendations that we have from the planning department. And I also believe that we really at the end of a certain time limit, we can't not approve it in any event, is my understanding. And maybe Amy can comment on that a little further.
Okay, I appreciate what you're saying. Thank you very much. All right, stand by there. Any members of council, any questions to our two staff? Mr. Deputy Mayor, go ahead, sir.
Just to understand, this, we've taken, whose power has been taken away? We've given the CAO to basically sign for any site plan agreement that we've agreed to. Is that correct? So that hasn't really changed, is that?
Go ahead, Amy.
Through your worship. So previously, so prior to Bill 109, municipal councils typically held site plan approval authority. In some cases, and the Planning Act did allow for delegation to staff. So there were times when staff could sign off on what we call site plan approval. So typically site plan agreements enact site plan control. So where a plan is approved through site plan approval, then that's sort of enacted through the site plan agreement so that construction occurs in accordance with those plans and studies that accompanied the site plan control. So previously it did lie with municipal councils, sometimes delegated staff. So in this case, the bill removed that approval authority from councils altogether and said that an identified officer or staff member had to be identified as the approval authority. So this report essentially puts that into action. And as part of that process, we're recommending that the CAO also be empowered to sign site plan agreements to meet with the intent of that legislation, which essentially is to speed up and streamline the site plan approval process.
Well, just further to that, then, will it come to council as a notice, or will we still be notified about site plan agreements that are executed or not?
Through you, your worship, we are proposing that council be updated as approvals are issued for the purposes of information, so that when you're driving through Stainer and you see some shovels in the ground, you know what's happening.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Okay. Picking up on that point, Deputy Mayor, to the CAO, would that be comfortable for you in your role as the CAO to provide council with a report of any site plan agreement approvals that have been issued?
Yeah, yes, we would. We'd want council to be informed of that occurring. So absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll look for that in the future. I'm sure that you'll be working with the staff in the planning department. Any other members of council with any questions? All right. It's a time of change, people. We're getting used to it. All right. I have a mover and seconder. Is that right? Yes, I do. Thank you. How quickly my mind drifts off. I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And there, that carries unanimous. Congratulations, Mr. CAO. Is it other duties as assigned? Oh gosh, yeah. There you go. All right, council, we're going to move on to Public Works. This is about a standby generator for the Sunnydale sewage pumping station. Be it resolved that report PW 041-2022 dated December 12, 2022 be received, and further that council be authorized, and further that staff be authorized to purchase a standby generator and PLCs and associated equipment as described within report PW 041-2022 for the Sunnydale sewage pump station. Can I have a mover and seconder on that motion? Deneen and Broderick, thank you. Any questions to our staff on that one? Pretty straightforward information. Seeing none, I'll call the motion. All those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you. All right. Emergency services. I know the chief is in the room with us, so we'll see if you guys have any questions for him. Fire pumper purchase. Be it resolved that the report FD 005-2022 dated December 5, 2022 be received, and further that the lowest bid from CityView Specialty Vehicles be accepted for delivery of one Rosenbauer fire pumper in the amount of $728,330. And further that the reserve apparatus 2005 Pump 7 be sold as surplus upon delivery of the new fire pumper, and 2008 Kenworth Pump 1 will be moved to reserve status. A mover and seconder on that motion, please. Deneen, seconded by Beelan. Thank you. And a good report. Any questions to the chief or the treasury on that? Yes, Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Worship. To the chief. Rosenbauer, we have this new for us, that manufacturer for Clearview. And is this a stock vehicle which cuts down on costs?
Your Worship, to Councillor Walker, this will be our first Rosenbauer vehicle. It is a stock unit. What Rosenbauer has done as a manufacturer, they've set aside 3 build slots in their very busy manufacturing schedule for these stock units. And what we're quoted on is one of these units that will be ready for delivery in 2024. It cuts down the typical build time of up to 2 years down to just over 1 year. And with the predefined specifications of this truck, it has cut down the cost considerably, as you can see in other quotations. But generally going with a stock vehicle, you do realize quite a bit of cost savings.
Councillor Walker. All right. Any other questions from members of council? Seeing none, Chief, I've got a quick question in regards to the now surplus vehicle, the 05 Pump 7, and then moving the Pump 1 into service. It will be sold as surplus upon delivery. Are we using the Clearview Township's sort of prescribed method of disposing of assets, or what's the asset disposal plan for the fire department apparatus?
To your worship, so the plan to dispose of Pump 7 will be just how we did with our previous Pump 7. As we gain new vehicles, they'll be posted through Gov Deals with a predetermined amount between $30,000 and $50,000.
Okay, so that'll be through Gov Deals. Okay. The only reason I bring it up for members of council, in the past, this council and previous councils have actually donated equipment like this to other municipalities across Ontario, particularly in the far north that need them. Unfortunately, that program has kind of changed a little bit, because as I was reading the fire marshal's office, and the standards for fire equipment are becoming much more rigid, even in the far north. So the ability to actually just donate it to, an unorganized municipality in the far north isn't even available to us anymore, which is unfortunate. So, we did have a relationship with a group up there called Goche Fire at one time. So anyhow, I just want to mention that so council knew. Any other thing further? Nothing further? Thank you, Chief. I will call the motion. All those in favor? That carries unanimous. Good luck. 2024, you said? Okay. This is how long it takes to get a fire pumper. Yeah, I know. Can you imagine? We will be, I'm sure. Okay. We're moving over to finance. Where I'm at, page 6 right now. This is the 2022-2023 insurance renewal. The finance department has FIN 017. Be it resolved that report FIN 017-2022 be received, and further that the insurance and risk management renewal proposal from Marsh Canada Limited in the amount of $602,154 plus tax be approved. Can I have a mover and seconder on that motion, please? Mr. Deputy Mayor and Mr. Broderick. Keep looking this way, fellas. And, you know, you guys got to get your cards up if you want to get in on this. Thank you. Ms. Treasurer, do you have any comments you want to speak about insurance?
Thank you, Your Worship. The report is pretty straightforward. And one of these years, I hope to bring in a report that says, hey, our premiums are going down. This is not the year.
That's not happening. No, I understand. It's difficult. Thank you very much for that comment. Any questions, members of staff, or sorry, members of council towards our staff? Seeing none. Okay, council, you've got a resolution. We got a mover and seconder. I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you. FIN 018. It's the 2022-2023 development charge indexing. Recommendation be it resolved that report FIN 018-2022 dated December 12, 2022 be received. Can I have a mover and seconder on that motion? Deneen, seconded by Walker. Thank you. Do you have any comments about the indexing, Madam Treasurer?
I'm available for any questions that council has. This actually is a report that wouldn't normally come to the council table. It would just be an automatic update through our DC bylaw. But because of the higher than normal percentage this year and last year, I thought maybe it'd be a good idea to let council have a look at it and get it out to the public before that December 1st.
Thank you.
Deadline.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Any questions to our staff? Seeing none. Council, you've got a resolution and a mover and seconder. I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries unanimous. Thank you. Now we are on to FIN 019. This is the revised budget timeline. Be it resolved that the report FIN 01, this should be 19, 2022, dated December 12, 2022, be received. Mover and seconder on the timeline. That would be Deneen and Broderick. Deneen and Broderick this time. Madam Treasurer, could you just advise council, you know, we did have a schedule approved by the previous council, but we have amended it as a result of a lot of changes coming from our provincial government. And do you have any comment on that change?
Can I get away with no?
No.
It's through your worship. Yes, we've had a lot of changes coming from the province recently that have sort of swamped everyone's desk. So the timeline for the 2023 to 2027 budget has been pushed out a bit. The dates will be the dates of the meetings. There may be an additional meeting after the last one that's on that schedule. And I am going to switch up the titles. So stay tuned for your calendar invites. And we will have the actual what we're going to try and adhere to posted on a website by tomorrow.
Okay, excellent. All right. Well, we'll all watch our calendars, and for the public, we'll watch the website for information about the budget process as it moves forward. There will be public participation for sure in the budget process, council. Do you have a question? That's okay.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just wondering why there's so much time between the February 9th council modifies proposed budget to the actual May 2023 for the final passing. Well, what's going on in there? Why so much time?
Through your worship to Councillor Beelan, once we have the budget passed through council, it is officially passed. I think it's the tax rate bylaw you're looking for. And we have to wait for numbers to come in, final numbers from the county, final numbers from the school boards. And then we have to take a look at all of our assessments and do the calculations to get our actual tax rates done. So it's the tax rate bylaw that you'll see in May. Once the budget passes, though, that's any of the projects listed in the budget, staff gets to work on those right away.
So yes, there's a period of time from when we pass it to actually fulfilling all the calculations. And then they'll present us with a very fulsome report, which becomes the tax bylaw. Okay. All right. Good questions. All right. Council, nothing further. I have a motion with a mover and seconder. Pardon me? I do not. What the heck? Mover and seconder, please. Mr. Broderick, Mr. MacArthur. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to check the tape. I think I did. She didn't write it down. All those in favor? That carries. I'm teasing. All right. Now we're going to go to our CAO. He's got a report for us in regards to water and sewer funding solution. And so I'll read the resolution and then we'll go to the CAO. Be it resolved that report CAO 007-2022 dated December 12, 2022 be received. And further, that bylaw 22-108 be enacted directing township staff to begin work on development of a business case and funding model for council to consider for the purposes of funding capital works projects within the township, be set out in accordance with the provisions of the bylaw and report back to council from time to time as needed. All right, can I have this mover and seconder to put this on the floor? Mr. Walker, Ms. Deneen, thank you very much. And John, right, there you are. Hello, John. Do you want to speak briefly to this?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I guess my short description of this is that we're asking council to give us the flexibility to look at how we're going to finance the water stainer project and potentially other projects within Clearview Township. Capital projects could be in the vicinity of, as it relates to development, in the vicinity of about 150 million. And our total capital obligations going forward could be in the tune of $241 million. So we would like to see development pay for development as much as possible. And we're looking at ways of being creative, either getting debt servicing increases approved for the township, or the potential of creating a municipal service corporation that would have no debt and would use the assets that would be built as collateral. And these are all avenues available. Some municipalities in Ontario are going in this direction now. This will allow us to start the process of establishing a business case. In order to establish a municipal service corporation, you have to establish a business case. And within that business case, we'll be looking at a variety of different models, hopefully. And this is what will get us started. The bylaw basically is council's blessings to permit the CAO and our professionals, our lawyers, and other professionals such as professional consulting firms on this matter of a business case, such as KPMG or PricewaterhouseCoopers, et cetera, and allows us to move forward in that regard.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Ferguson. Certainly, council, I've had conversations with Mr. Ferguson as the CAO and mayor about this a couple of times, and I'm very happy that he's brought this forward to us for your consideration, and give you an opportunity to ask any questions you would like of Mr. Ferguson. And I can also advise that Jim McIntosh, our solicitor, is also online and has made himself available to answer any questions if you have a legal question. So there's Jim right there. Welcome, Jim. So I'll look to council. Any questions to members of council about this decision? Yes, Mr. MacArthur.
Yeah, Your Worship, I just wonder if either Jim or John could explain the timeline for this project going forward.
John, I'll start with you.
Thank you. The Municipal Service Corporation, depending on how much is involved, depending how far we go with the Municipal Service Corporation, could take anywhere between 6 months and a year, more likely a year.
All right. Anybody else with any questions to our staff and experts? No? All right. If I may, I would have a question to John, just for the references for the public. John, working on this type of project as the CAO may entail some expenses, some works that will be done to do this, to build the business case or to write the business case. Would you project that there's any budget impact, or do you feel it's within the budget allocations that are already prepared that you could use to exercise this if council gives approval?
That's a great question, Your Worship. We ultimately would want to have a discussion with our developer group and determine what they'd be willing to pay in support of this, as well. We'd look at our own budgets. That's something that we'll be discussing in our budget deliberations as well. But most of the time, we try to attach this to the developer group as much as possible to see if they'll consider paying for it.
Okay, because a project like this will require a very well-written business case with proper research. So given your workload and others in this building, I would expect that there will be some expenses on that. So that's what I was just sort of anticipating. John?
Yeah, there will be, and there'll be a significant amount of work by several staff on this matter.
I imagine so. Okay. If there's nothing further from members of council, you're not looking. So I'll tell you what, I'd like to go to Jim McIntosh. Jim, just as in your work, have you seen this type of thing happen in other municipalities too, where they've had to develop a sort of a case for this type of thing? And what do you think the objectives would be of us to reach this and be successful? Jim?
Thank you, Your Worship. There are a number of different municipalities that are moving in this direction, and they're at various stages of completion. It is a fairly new initiative in terms of looking at these alternative funding models. The province has equipped, through the Municipal Act 2001, municipalities with the power to embark on these processes in order to develop creative funding mechanisms. We've tried with the developer group in Stayner in particular to work on a more traditional funding model that would allow this water capacity improvement project to go forward to accommodate the growth of residential development as well as future commercial and industrial development in Stayner to go forward. And unfortunately, the funding through conventional means just wasn't there. So we've now taken a look at these broader based models that are now in development with various municipalities, including Leamington, Oro-Medonte, other municipalities of their size and whatnot. And they're having some success, but it takes time to work through the system. There are specific consultants that are out there in the industry with some of the larger accounting firms like PricewaterhouseCoopers, KPMG, Grant Thornton, and through our efforts in the last week or so, we've got some names of people we'll put some exploratory feelers out to. And then if council gives us the go ahead through this bylaw, we'll be able to report back to council with proposals and also engage in discussions with the development community. So it's a relatively new initiative, but it's one that's showing signs of success with other municipalities in the province.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Jim. I'm encouraged to know that you're engaged with that, and that you're looking at other municipalities as models and learning from their successes and failures and helping us with this one. Members of council, anything further? All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Council, you've got a motion in front of you with a mover and seconder. I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? That carries unanimous. Good luck, Mr. Ferguson. More workload. All right. All right, council, moving on. Legislative services. Now, before I read this one, I want to mention that early in the meeting, I mentioned that we had met in camera and that council has now come out of in camera, obviously, to have a report. This is the appointments for committees and boards motion, and then there's further bylaws that are attached to that later on. So this is the motion for our boards and committees, and I have included in this the mayor's recommended list. So any questions? I'll read the motion and then we'll go for a mover and seconder. Okay. I see that Councillor Broderick has removed himself from the meeting. Be it resolved that the report LS 022-2022 dated December 12, 2022 be, yes, Madam Clerk, I'm stopping.
No, that's fine. No, through your worship, this report does not have any members of the public on it.
Correct.
So this is just the council appointments.
Correct. So let's just review that. Mr. Broderick, you probably don't need to back off on this one. FYI. Had me kind of going the other way too, just to be clear. All right. Everybody good? Thank you. Be it resolved that report LS 022-2022 dated December 12, 2022 be received, and further that the mayor's recommended list of committees, boards, and council liaison appointments for the 2022-26 term of council as set out in Appendix A to report LS 022-2022. Boy, there's a lot of 22s. Be approved. And further, that bylaws be enacted appointing members of council to the Nottawaslaga Valley Conservation Authority and an alternate member of council to the County of Simcoe and to the Committee of Adjustment. Okay, a mover and seconder on this bylaw, Deputy Mayor, and seconded by Councillor Beelan. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, any questions on this? My comment would be, just so you know, is that I always believe that I would never, ever appoint any member of our council to a board that they don't want to be on. So I'm happy to say that I had good communication with all members of council, and further that if there's any changes necessary after you've joined a board, or you're getting uncomfortable, or your life changes, or you have other issues that feel that you cannot complete it, please just bring it forward, and we will very easily, through the magic of the clerk's office, prepare motions for removal and replacement councillors and other boards and committees. So just to be flexible, that's what this is all about. Madam Clerk.
Through your worship, just a quick note. We do have a Committee of Adjustment meeting this week.
Yes.
What I'm recommending is the council appointment, and also when we get to the resident appointments, if we can just make the Committee of Adjustment effective as of December 15th.
Yes, that is true. The volunteers that serve on that committee will be meeting on Wednesday, and that agenda has already been prepared and those reports are already out. And so that committee will continue to meet on Wednesday. So Ms. Can, you can, I don't think I can make that meeting myself, but I'm not a member of it, but please give them my best regards and thanks for their diligence. And we'll acknowledge that they will continue to be a committee right through until Thursday. Sounds good. Thank you. That's good advice from the clerk. You know, we've got to keep track of all these starts and ends. Anything else? Anything further? All right. Seeing none, you have a mover and seconder and a motion. I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? Thank you very much. That carries unanimous. Okay, here's our bylaws. First bylaw is bylaw number 22-98, appointing a building inspector, Jen Lobby. Jen, is recommended to be it resolved that bylaw 2298, being a bylaw to appoint a building inspector for the Township of Clearview, be presented and read a first, second, and third time and finally passed on the 12th day of December, 2022. Mover and seconder, Deneen Beelan, thank you. Any questions? And all those in favor? And the bylaw carries. Thank you. Amendment to the delegated authority bylaw. Recommended, be it resolved, bylaw 2299. Being a bylaw to amend bylaw 20-16, being a bylaw to delegate routine and minor powers and duties of council of the Township of Clearview to officers and staff of the Corporation of the Township of Clearview, now in the Township of Clearview, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed on the 12th day of December, 2022. Mover and seconder on this side. Okay, it'll be Mr. MacArthur and Mr. Broderick. Any questions? All those in favor? And the bylaw carries. Thank you. 22-100, amendment to the site plan control bylaw. Be it resolved that bylaw 22-100, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 0717, being the site plan control bylaw, presented and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed on the 12th day of December 2022. Mover and seconder, Deneen. Seconded, Walker. Thank you. And any questions on the bylaw? Seeing none, all those in favor? And the bylaw carries. Thank you. Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority appointment. Be it resolved that bylaw 22-103, being a bylaw to appoint members to the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority Board of Directors, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed on the 12th day of December 2022. Can I have a mover and seconder on this side? Deneen and Walker, once again. Any questions? Those in favor? And that carries unanimous. Congratulations, Deputy Mayor Van Stavern. County Council alternate member appointment bylaw. Recommendation, be it resolved that bylaw 22-104, being a bylaw to appoint an alternate member to the Council of the County of Simcoe during the absence of the mayor or deputy mayor, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, finally passed on the 12th day of December 2022. Can I have a mover and seconder? Deputy Mayor and Councillor MacArthur. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just on our agenda, mine, it did not come up.
Didn't come up?
It comes up right, takes us right to the menu, right to the page not found, right to Clearview's website.
Uh-oh. Oh, yours too? Error 404, I guess. All right. Madam Clerk, would you give us a brief review of what it says?
Yes, through Your Worship, just one moment and I can share my screen.
Yeah.
There it is. Item 1, Councillor John Broderick. Just for information, while I've got it on the floor, it was partway through the second year of county council that they recognized that they needed the alternate. Yeah. And they sent us a recommendation last term asking for us to appoint alternates. And so alternates will actually have to be sworn in as alternate county councilors, and alternates will be, provided information and access to all of the meeting agendas, et cetera. And it's simply up to the deputy mayor and myself, if we're going to be absent, to just advise the member that we're not going to be there. So it's a pretty simple process, really. Okay. Any questions now that we've seen it? We're all comfortable? All right. We had a mover and seconder, I believe. Yes, we did. And any further questions? I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And that carries unanimous. Congratulations, Mr. Broderick. All right. And here we are at 106. It's kind of interesting. Eh? The number's missing. 105 isn't in there. Anyway, Committee of Adjustment appointment. Be it resolved that bylaw 22-106, being a bylaw to appoint a member to the Township of Clearview Committee of Adjustment, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, finally passed on the 12th day of December 2022. Can I have a mover and seconder on this one, please? Mr. Beelan, Mr. Walker, Beelan and Walker. Any questions? No, seeing none. Before I call it, I just want to ask Amy, if I'm not mistaken, do we have to do this every year? I think the Committee of Adjustment council member, is that right? I think it's every year we have to do that. Yeah. Just to be advised, you'll see this again. All right. That's all I have. All those in favor? And that carries unanimous. Thank you. It's the one odd committee that has to have every year appointment. I don't know.
And only council. The residents are term.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Funding capital improvement projects, Stainer, Creemore, Nottawa, et cetera. This is item 107, which added. Recommendation, be it resolved, bylaw 22-107, being a bylaw authorized township staff to pursue initiatives for the funding, construction, operation of pending capital improvement projects in the township of Clearview to accommodate present and future growth within the communities of Stainer, Creemore, and Nottawa, be presented and read a first, second, and third time and finally passed on the 12th day of December 2022. Mover and seconder, Deneen Seconded, Beelen. Thank you. Any questions? I'll call the motion. All those in favor? And the bylaw carries unanimous. Thank you. Okay, now we're at the board appointment bylaw, which I was kind of going that direction, Councillor Broderick, just so we know. Be it resolved that bylaw 22-101, being a bylaw to appoint members to the Township of Clearview committees and boards for the 2022-2026 term of council, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, finally passed on the 12th day of December 2022. I acknowledge Broderick and Van Stavert have stepped away from the table. Can I have a mover and seconder? That'd be Deneen and Walker. Deneen and Walker, thank you. Any questions? No questions? I'll give one comment. We did have an opportunity here to, we're going to have an opportunity to advertise for a couple of committees that did not have a full complement yet. And so that will yet come out in local advertising. And we encourage any volunteer or any citizen to put their name forward to consider joining our volunteer boards. All right. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. Alrighty. Council, I'm on the last page. Notices of motion or new business. I have a new business. If it's the pleasure of council, I'd like to put something on the floor real quick. I would like a motion to direct staff to remove these plastic panels on this dais. Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Mr. Walker, the deputy mayor, I would ask staff to have this done before the next January meeting. All those in favor? Those opposed? Thank you. That'll carry. Thank you very much, council, for letting me do that. Bylaw, we're at the bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting. Recommendation, be it resolved that bylaw 22-105, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the December 12th, 2022 council meeting, be presented and read a first, second, and third time and finally passed on the 12th day of December 2022. Bylaw, Deputy Mayor. Yes. Councillor MacArthur. Yes. All those in favor? That carries. Your confirmatory bylaw. It's a very important piece of document, by the way. Thank you. Motion to adjourn. Not looking at the clock up there, looking at our digital clock. What time is it?
8:05.
8:05. Recommendation be it resolved that the council meeting be adjourned at 8:05 p.m. And that would be Deneen and Walker. Thank you very much. All those in favor. This council meeting is adjourned, but we will, first of all, wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, a safe and happy New Year. Get out there and have a really good time.